webinar all about becoming an egg donor. Hi, good morning, everybody. I don't know if you can hear us as yet, but I just want to welcome you all to our webinar on being an egg donor at Trinidad IVF. I'm Dr. Catherine Minto-Bain. I'm one of the fertility doctors here. And I would like to just introduce my amazing nurse, Gabrielle, Gabrielle Rodney, who's not just an expert in the lab looking at sperm, but she's also one of the IVF nurses. And actually, she's our experienced nurse that talks to all our egg donors. So, Gabby, would you like to just say who you are and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Gabrielle. I am going to be the one who's going to be nagging you for period dates and making sure you do everything that we ask leading up to egg donation. We just want to say thank you for coming. This is a very generous thing to do, to be an egg donor, and we hope that we are able to help you navigate this journey.
Absolutely. And that's what this webinar is all about today. It's really finding out what is being an egg donor? What goes on? Who is this clinic? Where do my eggs go? How does it work? It's really, today is all about answering your questions. So Gabby's going to be keeping a close eye on the chat. So if you have a look on your, I never know whether it's this way or this way, but if you have a look on your, it's this way, Gabby knows. Have a look, there's a chat function here. So you can just type in the chat your questions. You can ask them privately if you notice, or you can ask them to everybody. Either way, Gabby's going to see them and she's going to interrupt me as we do the presentation and just answer your questions. There's also a Q&A. You're welcome to go in there as well, but it's really up to you. Just pop them in the chat or the Q&A section as we go along, because this is interactive and we talk as we go. I can see there are lots of you coming in, and we've had a really overwhelming response this time to Facebook. So we're really glad that you're here. If you're having trouble with this webinar or you've got to go back to work, we understand that. You'll actually get an email with a replay of this webinar, so you can watch it again or you can catch it later if you need to. I can see some questions coming in already. So Gabby, do you want to just start answering those and we'll get going with the presentation?
We have one question. It is, how long is the procedure and is it done by surgery? So the actual egg donation process takes about 14 days from start to finish, and it's not surgical in the sense of the word. It is a procedure that's done under sedation. There's no cutting at all. It's an ultrasound guided needle that goes into the ovaries and takes out the eggs. So you're not going to have a scar, but you will have a lasting impression on your heart.
That's a nice way to put it. We're going to give you a bit more information, Hema, so just keep watching. Okay, I'm going to get going with the presentation because I can see we've got many people here, which is wonderful. So as I said, this is all about being an egg donor, and really being an egg donor is a very special thing. Just to introduce us again, these are our beautiful pictures. This is what we look like when we're really on form. I'm the fertility doctor in the clinic. There are 2 other fertility doctors. Gabrielle's one of a team of 7 nurses, but she's also highly skilled. She has 2 hats that she wears. She's an andrology technician, which means she also works in the lab with the sperm. So she knows a huge amount. Really, what we want to tell you today is, what is this egg donor program? Who are we? What is the program? Who can be an egg donor? How does it work? And really just answer your questions, because most egg donors have lots of questions. This is who we are. We really are a globally trained, completely world-class fertility service. And I think a lot of people are extremely amazed to find out that in TNT, you have a real world-class top fertility clinic. We're extremely proud of what we do. We create families. That's what we're here for. But we also do it honestly. There's no marketing gimmicks, no unreasonable success rates. We're very honest with our TNT population. We're here for TNT, and our job is also to keep costs at a minimum. So I think one thing you're going to notice as we talk is how honest we are, how much information we give you, but we really are here for the people who need babies in TNT. International people do find us, but our egg donation program is much less expensive than you'd find in other countries. And that's for our local population, because that's what they need. And really a lot of the work that we do really focuses around value, understanding, and being here for TNT. So who are we? Well, we're loads of people. You're meeting just 2 of us today, but there are over 20 of us that work in the clinic. You may notice we are predominantly a female team, which is quite unusual in the fertility world. We love that though. And so we're extremely proud. We're mostly Trinidadians. I may have a British accent, but I've certainly been living here 15 years. I'm British, trained in the UK. I'm the medical director, the science director who runs the whole lab side of things. She's an Australian, but again, fallen in love with TNT and been living here for over a decade. So we're a Caribbean team, and we train people locally to become experts. So you've got a lot of Trini doctors, Trini nurses, Trini lab technicians, Trini embryologists. Our biggest problem is losing people abroad when we train them, because we train people extremely well. You may not realize in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago actually has led the way in fertility medicine. It's something we're exceptionally proud of. I don't know if you realize, but the Caribbean's first IVF baby was actually Trinidad and Tobago, conceived in 96, born in 97. If you look through this list of firsts, we keep having the firsts. I mean, we keep going with being on the cutting edge of providing the best and the latest fertility treatments. And we had the first egg donor baby, and that's over 20 years ago now. That was back in 2001, just a couple of years before I arrived in TNT. So we've been around over 2 decades. We know what we're doing, and we know Trinidad and Tobago. We're one of the most experienced clinics. Fertility changes, and we bring in lots of new tests and treatments, usually quite a few years ahead of other regional clinics. One of the big examples is we have a sperm testing service here that does sperm DNA quality testing, which actually none of the other Caribbean clinics even have touched yet. They don't do it. We make sure every new advance is safe, and we're really focused on quality and being inspected and being the best that we do. And that's quite unusual in TNT, because TNT medical clinics generally aren't inspected. So fertility is incredibly important. We bring in inspectors from abroad, just like in the UK, your clinics, and when you do fertility, they're inspected and they have to be accredited and you have to get a certification. We do that. And actually back in 2018, we got the top international accreditation rating from our accreditation body from the UK, which was something that we were incredibly proud of, and we were in the newspapers with that. So you can trust us. We know what we're doing. We have the proven standards. When the team of inspectors came to us, one of the inspectors said that we should be proud of our outstanding inspection scores, which put many UK IVF units to shame. That was something that made us incredibly proud and happy. We're honest, we're transparent, we give all of our success rates to our patients. We're very honest with you. And really, as I said, our goal here is really very simple. And that's what we're telling you. It's really your goal as well if you come to us as an egg donor. You're helping families have healthy babies. That's really what we're all about. Who do we see? In the fertility clinic, we see a range of things. Obviously, we see couples with infertility, but we also see single people, single women wanting donor sperm, single women who are having cancer treatment, maybe breast cancer, chemotherapy, but they want to hold on to their eggs. So we do fertility preservation. We do that for guys with sperm freezing. We see people who are worried about their future fertility and might want to do some egg or sperm freezing. And then when couples, not just fertility, we see couples who recurrently miscarry because we have all of those tests. We see same-sex females. We can't see same-sex males because we're not allowed to do surrogacy at the moment. But same-sex females certainly come in for donor sperm treatment. So why do people need eggs? You might have a little bit of an idea because you're here as an egg donor, potentially. Often it's age. Women are too old and their eggs just won't make a baby anymore. Some women, healthy, young, but they have this egg quality issue and their eggs won't make a baby. Other people, women have gone through an early menopause. We call it premature menopause. And that's incredibly common. 1 in 100 women will go through that. We've seen the latest woman I just saw was 29. It happens to about 1 in 100 women. It's certainly commoner in women of color. And it's probably genetic, but it's caused by other things. Some people have lost their eggs through surgery. Other women have had chemotherapy, cancer treatments, and lost their eggs. And then occasionally it's because a woman carries a genetic disease and she doesn't want to pass it on to her children, so she can choose egg donation as one of her options. What is an egg donor? You're basically a person who is giving this incredible gift, a few of your eggs that are going to go to another woman. It's anonymous, although you can be a known donor. Sometimes women will ask someone they know to be their known donor, sister to sister. We do that in the clinic. But if you're coming to us as a potential egg donor to go into our egg bank, you're going to be anonymous. And our egg bank is frozen eggs. And as I said, it's anonymous. So I think I'm going to hand over to Gabby here, who's just going to talk a little bit about who can be an egg donor.
All right, guys, so we're looking for young ladies who are aged between 22 and 28 to be egg donors. 21 to 28, sorry. Should not have been a smoker for at least 3 months. Healthy height to weight ratio, so we require BMI of 25, 18 to 25, shouldn't be above that. No serious medical issues. Good egg levels, which will be determined by blood testing after you've met with the nurse at first, and also free from infectious diseases, including HIV, hepatitis B and C, syphilis, and no inheritable disorders. So we do a lot of screening. We do drug screening, we do blood testing, we do genetic screening. So once you are free from anything that may be detrimental to a baby, then you are qualified to be an egg donor. We have a lot of questions coming in now. So one of the questions is, somebody wants to know if somebody with PCOS can become an egg donor.
Yes, I was just actually putting on the chat. We're going to go through your questions, actually. We'll go through a few of them now. If you have PCOS, that's incredibly common, and it really depends how bad it is. So yes, fill out the application form. Women with PCOS have had success in giving eggs, and it really just depends on what your PCOS is like. So we'll screen you. We'll let you know. First step is really to complete our application form by emailing us at Trinidad IVF. I'm just putting that email at the moment into our chat. So yes, PCOS women can certainly donate. Gabby, do you want to go through the rest of questions that are coming through at the moment? We'll just go through some of them.
So we could go through them. Somebody also wanted to find out if there are any side effects from the egg donation, and also how many times can you donate?
So actually, we have that question coming up. We'll repeat it in a minute. Generally, you can donate between 1 to 3 times. The most anyone has donated in our clinic is 4 times. We have a limit on the number of families you can create in TNT, and that's what limits the number of donations you can do. Because actually, the egg donation is incredibly safe. It doesn't really stop anything. It doesn't affect you in any way. So you can donate many times as an egg donor, but we have a limit of the families that you can create in TNT, but we do get international patients coming through as well. What was the other question, Gabby?
The other question was side effects of being a donor.
Yeah, so side effects of being a donor. There are some side effects when you take the medication to grow your eggs, but generally not very many. Those are kind of happy hormones and people feel generally well. And there are some small risks of being a donor. And that is the egg procedure collection. You can get the small risk of infection or bleeding when you do that. Most of these questions we're going to actually answer. So I'm going to carry on with the presentation. Gabby, I think just if you interject with questions you think I need to answer, and we'll go through all of your questions, I promise. One thing we get often asked is, I've just had a baby, can I donate? And yes, you can, once you're well. Usually 3 months after your baby's born, you're fine to be an egg donor. Not if you're breastfeeding, because of the hormones that you produce when you're breastfeeding. So we say wait until you finish breastfeeding. Okay, so let's go through how we screen donors, because we have to screen you to find out if you're suitable or not. And Gabby, just jump in at any time and interrupt me, okay? So egg donors are screened, and it's really a 6-step process, and all of it's free of charge. You don't pay for anything. I can see somebody just saying, how can smoking affect the eggs? So when you are being assessed to be an egg donor, smoking actually releases 600 chemicals into your bloodstream, including arsenic and radiation and all sorts of horrible things. You don't want that in the fluid around the eggs when you donate. So you have to have been a non-smoker for 3 months before you donate to get all of those nasty chemicals out of your body. If you're a smoker as well, you kill off your eggs quicker, so you have less eggs. So our advice is, number one, don't smoke. It kills you in a multitude of horrible ways. Number two, it kills your eggs. And if you're going to be an egg donor, you have to have stopped for at least 3 months to get those nasty chemicals out of your body. So the first step then, step one, you contact the clinic. Find out if you're suitable to be an egg donor. And like Gabby was saying, there's age limits, 21 to 28, non-smoker for at least 3 months, hormone blood tests, a variety of things. We're going to see if you're suitable. So we're going to ask you a few questions. We're going to give you a form to complete that tells us all about you. And we can figure out then if it's safe for you to be a donor and if you would make a suitable donor. We get you lots of information to read, and we will have this video on our website soon as well, so that people who don't like to read can watch. And basically the question for you is it right for you to be doing this? And the question for us is it safe for you to be able to do this? So we check it's safe for you, and then we check to see if you'd make a good donor. Step two, so we talked about potential egg donors, must be these things. Healthy weight is important, and not having any endometriosis important. Step two really is you've contacted us, we've briefly chatted with you, now we need you to fill in this questionnaire. And to fill in the questionnaire, to get it, it is on our website, but there seems to be some sort of glitch on the website. So if you just email us, egg, at trinidadivf.com, we will get the form to you. And the questionnaire asks you lots of things about your family's medical history, about your medical history, lots of information about you, questions about why you're donating, and we're finding out the type of person you are as well. And then the medical team will review it, and if you are passed, then you'll move on to step three. Gabby, any questions at the moment?
We just have ones that will be covered in the slide as we go along, but somebody just asked if a donor can be on birth control and then come off to do the egg donation.
Yeah, so actually we put you on birth control often just before you do your donation. So yes, a lot of egg donors are on birth control, that's fine. Some of them have a coil in, which is absolutely fine. Egg donors who've had their tubes tied or sterilized, absolutely fine. You can all be egg donors. Okay, so step three. Step three is having a chat with a fertility nurse. You've done the questionnaire. We just want to find out who you are, talk to you a little bit, check that you're okay with all of this. We're going to find out what your weight is, and we're going to, very important, organize some free blood tests for you. Two. One is to check your egg levels. That's your AMH blood test to make sure you have enough eggs to be a donor. And number two, just a blood count to check your general health. And we answer all your questions at this point as well, because most people are going to have lots of questions. And then step four, if you get through and the blood tests look okay, you're going to come in and meet one of the doctors. First, it'll be a telehealth. I'm going to have a chat with you, review some things, ask you some questions, go through and make sure you understand what you're getting into, including the small risks of being an egg donor. If you're okay with all of that and you still want to go ahead, then we organize for you to come in and meet one of us. That's me there with the ultrasound, chatting with one of our patients. We're going to do an examination. We're going to ask you for urine, so we can do a drug screen on that. We're going to do a very gentle, painless fertility ultrasound. If you want a free pap smear, that's absolutely fine. We'll give you one. If you don't want a pap smear, not a problem. You don't have to have one. And we'll go through the risks with you, really, because there are some small risks of being an egg donor. It doesn't have any impact on your future fertility, but it can cause a little bit of infection or bleeding during the egg collection procedure. And we just need to talk to you about that. If you were a Jehovah's Witness and you wouldn't want a blood transfusion under any circumstances, we probably wouldn't take you on as an egg donor. The risk of bleeding is 1 in 1,000. It's really very small, but we like to make sure that this is really the safest thing in the world for egg donors. And it really is these days. There used to be the risk of overgrowing the eggs and getting the eggs swollen, the ovaries swollen, and that's gone now because we use something called an agonist trigger. So egg donation now is actually considered an incredibly safe procedure. Gabby, any questions as I'm going to step 5?
You could go ahead, Doctor. You're answering most of them.
Okay, great. So step 5, once you've been through the examination, the ultrasound, we need to just get a bit more detail with some more blood tests and a genetic screen. So we need more blood tests. At this point, we're going to do an infection screen, looking for HIV and hepatitis, amongst other things. We check a hormone, we check your blood group. And at this point as well, we do a detailed genetic screen because we're looking for any genetic condition that you might carry. This won't rule you out of being an egg donor necessarily. It's just a very, very detailed look at your genetics. And as you can see here, this is the kind of anonymous donor profile we make, and it says that this donor has been screened for all of these genetic conditions. You can carry one of these and you wouldn't know, and that's not a problem. You can still be an egg donor for most of them, and it just means that the man that will be getting your eggs and his sperm will be going into them, we check them to make sure they don't carry the same thing. So some blood tests for infection, and the genetic test is actually saliva. You spit into a tube, so it's quite a gentle test. And then the last step, really, when you've got through all of that, is to have a chat with our clinic counsellor. That's one of our counsellors there in the middle of all of us in pink. That's Anna there in the dark jacket. Really just to run through with you, are you sure you want to do this? Make sure you've thought it through. Just go through the pros and cons, make sure you've thought about things you may not have considered, make sure you're understanding, just making sure you won't regret it, really, making sure you're going to be okay and it won't harm you in any way. So that screening takes roughly 4 appointments. We usually get through it in 4 to 8 weeks. I'll be very honest. Not all applicants make it through the screening process. In fact, most applicants will fall out at some point along the way, and you may be found ineligible at any of those points. And unfortunately, that means you couldn't be an egg donor in our clinic because we do have these very high standards. Okay, so if you're accepted as a donor, what happens next? And that's really what most of you are going to be asking. You want to get on with the screening process because you're excited and you want to know, okay, well, how do I donate? What really happens during the donation? So let's go into this bit. Gabby, any questions so far?
No questions yet, also.
Okay, so I'm seeing people asking me about compensation for donating, and that's a question that comes up a lot. We do pay for egg donation. Once we don't pay for your eggs, we pay you for the time that it takes you when you are doing your IVF treatment. And that's the 2 weeks that it takes to grow and collect your eggs. So if you complete it and you have your egg collection, then we are going to give you the payment, which is TT $5,000. It's not linked to whether your eggs make babies or not, because your eggs go into our egg bank. So I see one question there about, is the payment made if we're successful? It's not linked with whether you make a baby or not. It's linked to do with, did you go through with all the injections? Did you come in for the egg donation procedure, the egg collection? And you get the check then. The eggs are frozen in our bank, so it's 2 weeks to grow and collect your eggs. I'm going to go through this in a bit more detail. Eggs are frozen.
Before you start, Doctor, somebody wants to know how the weight affects the process.
Okay, so you need to be a good weight, and we want you in a healthy weight range. That means a BMI not too thin, so your body mass index needs to be above 19, but below 24 ideally. And that's because that makes it, number one, safer to collect your eggs. If you're overweight, you tend to make less eggs and it's less cost effective for us. And you also have a little bit more risk when we are doing the egg donation process, the egg collection. And then the other thing is we're very honest with the women that are getting your eggs. So they get your weight, it's on your profile. And the honest truth is that most women who are looking for an egg donor, they're not going to choose an egg donor who's overweight. So again, that's the other important reason that your weight is good. And we're going to see you, we're going to weigh you, we're going to check you out when you come to clinic. And we're very honest with the women that get the eggs. Okay, so I'm going to go through how the cycle works. So the eggs are frozen in our egg bank. And how does it work? Well, this is kind of a detailed way of how it works, all of these things, but let me go through it step by step. So, Gabby, do you want to ask another question?
Just the, I think you touched on this earlier, but this person probably popped in late. they just wanted to know how would breastfeeding affect egg donation.
Yeah, so when you're so you can donate if you've never had children. You can donate if you've just had a child and you've got to 3 months and you're healthy. If you're breastfeeding, you make the hormone prolactin, makes milk, but it also stops eggs. So that's the one problem we have. We love breastfeeding. We think it's fabulous for the baby, but you just can't be an egg donor when you're breastfeeding because it will inhibit your eggs from growing. So we just wait until you've finished your breastfeeding. And we're taking egg donors on all the time. There's no time limit. So if you're breastfeeding now, that's not a problem. We can start screening you. And then once you're happy and finished breastfeeding, then you can be an egg donor in our clinic. And I'm seeing one other question there. Would you know if or when your egg is used and if it's a successful pregnancy? Not all of the recipients' information, just yes or no answers. So yes, we always ask you, what would you like to know? And you get the option to know 3 things, and I'll go through it in a minute. But you get the option of knowing whether a pregnancy has occurred with your eggs, if a baby's been born with your eggs, and if it's a girl or a boy, and whether it's in Trinidad and Tobago or abroad. So we happily give you that information. Some egg donors want to know it for the future, and others just not really interested, actually. They'd rather not know. Gabby, anything else?
Nothing else right now, doctor. I can answer the other ones.
Okay, so egg donation cycle, growing your eggs. So the first step, when you've been through screening and you're now actually coming in to have your treatment cycle to grow and collect your eggs, first step is growing those eggs. And it's a daily injectable medication. You take it usually for around 10 days, between 9 to 14 days. And you're going to have ultrasounds and blood tests every 1 to 3 days after the first 6 or 7 days of those injections. These ultrasounds are done by the fabulous nurses in clinic, and we're going to get a picture of your ovary. I don't know if you can see here, but this thing in the middle with those black bubbles, and one of them is measured. You see those little yellow bits? That's your ovary, and that's what we're measuring. And we measure this sac of fluid called a follicle. And that's what usually contains these tiny, tiny little microscopic eggs, which is what you're donating. And you have hundreds of thousands of these eggs in your ovaries. And what we're doing is taking just a few of the 1,000 that would die that month for you. Normally, your body will grow and make 1 egg a month. If you're doing an egg donation cycle, it might make up to 20 eggs. And they're just those batch of eggs that woke up that month, and they would have died if you don't use them. So we're not taking eggs from the next month. We're not depleting your eggs for the future. And we watch carefully on the ultrasound to see how many you're making. These ultrasounds and blood tests are done they're done early in the morning so people can go to work between 7 and 9 a.m. But they're also done that way so we can get the same day results on the blood tests. We have a meeting every day where we go through everyone in cycle. And then we get back to you in the afternoon to tell you the dose of medication to take that evening. And being on time is very important. So if someone who's being screened repeatedly doesn't turn up for their screening appointments, we wouldn't take you on as an egg donor, because the clinic has time slots for everything. It's very important in a fertility clinic. We'll be doing ultrasounds and blood tests at a certain time, but then we've got women coming in for their egg collection, and that's time critical. And then we've got couples coming in for appointments with the doctor. We've got people coming in for embryo transfers. We've got people coming in for tube x-ray tests, and we don't keep people waiting. We know your time is really important. So we ask you to turn up on time for us, but we'll also tell you that we always try our utmost not to keep you waiting as well. So the egg collection procedure itself, I saw a couple of you asking about the egg collection procedure. How does it work? It's not surgery. We often get asked that. Are there any cuts on my tummy? Is there any surgery? Once your eggs are grown, they are collected, and it's really just a little needle that goes through the wall of the vagina, and it goes into the ovary. So no cuts on your tummy. It's really like a blood test. But the needle, instead of going into your arm for a blood test, goes through the vagina, and it's got an ultrasound probe on the side of it so we can watch and do it under ultrasound guidance. You wouldn't want to be wide awake for that because the vaginal area is quite sensitive. So we don't knock you out with a general anesthetic, but we give you something called conscious sedation, which helps you sleep and not feel any pain. One of our egg donors, by mistake, she had eaten an hour before she came in. She had doubles before she came in, which is something you're not supposed to do. So she couldn't have the sedation, and she was fine. She said to go ahead anyway. She was an amazing woman. She actually donated 4 times in our clinic, and this first time she couldn't have the sedation because she'd eaten. She was great. She said, go ahead. I've had a baby. I've had 2 babies. How bad can it be? And we did it while we chatted, and she said it didn't hurt her at all. I did it in 20 minutes and she was fine. So you could do it without the sedation, and in some countries they do. But I'm seeing a question from Chantal saying, is any part of the procedure painful? We aim for it not to be at all. Where could there be pain? Well, during this procedure, we're giving you sedation, so you get a painkiller and you're sleeping. After this procedure, we give you painkillers, and some people get a bit of crampiness in their tummy that evening. Other women are fine. Some people get a bit of pelvic pain afterwards for a day, and otherwise they're fine. Where else can you get pain in an egg donation cycle? I guess from the blood tests, if you don't like needles, and from the injections when you give the drugs. But again, people say it's not painful. You kind of get used to it after the first one. So the egg collection, going back to the egg collection, takes about 20 or 30 minutes. And as I said, you're sedated, so you don't feel any pain. After the procedure, we monitor you in the clinic. Generally, we keep you in the clinic a couple of hours, 2, 3, 4 hours. We don't like you to go home until we know you're absolutely safe. These sedation drugs have to wear off, and you can't drive. So someone needs to come in and collect you. I'm seeing a question there. Yes, if you go through the process and you get denied through it, you still get paid for it. If you're, so Jada, if you are going through the screening process and you get, you're ineligible at any point and we don't accept you as an egg donor, no, there's no payment. But if you're going through the egg collection, if you're going through the procedure to be an egg donor, as long as you don't just pull out and say you don't want to do it anymore, in which case you wouldn't get your money. If you go through to the end and we collect your eggs, absolutely you get your money. If for some reason you didn't get any eggs, we've still paid our egg donors because they went through with everything just like they said they were going to. Okay, Gabby, anything else along the way? What else?
Just that I've been answering the others.
Yeah, are there any that we can talk about? Just that are maybe common questions?
Well, mostly common ones are what you're explaining now, the egg collection process, and largely it's about payments.
Right. Okay, so the next step then, when you've done your egg donation, when you've done your procedure, your egg collection, we're going to freeze your eggs. I put a picture there of a hen's egg in a dish. That's not what your eggs look like. Everybody thinks that this is what eggs look like. They're big. They're not. They're tiny. Actually, if you get a pen, you can get probably about 10 to 20 eggs on the tip of a pen. They're that tiny. You can't actually see them with the human eye. And so that actually, if you see on the right there, there's a lady in the lab, one of our embryologists, and actually she needs a microscope to see your eggs. So they're not the size of hen's eggs. This is what the eggs actually look like. This is some eggs from a few weeks ago in our lab. They're microscopic. We have to look at them under the microscope and enlarge them many times. Gabby, I see some questions coming in. So
There's some really good questions coming in now. So one of them wants to find out if everything is done locally. The other question, do we give ourselves the daily injections? How will the injections affect periods after the procedure? And somebody wants some more information about the process when you are a lady dealing with PCOS.
So Gabby, why don't you do the one about, is it done locally?
Okay, so we are a local clinic. We are located in Trinidad. You do not have to go anywhere unless you really want to, but we're here. We're a local clinic, so everything is done in Trinidad. We have 2 offices, Marval and Medical Associates. So you're not going any further than Medical Associates at any point. You do have to give yourself the daily injections. You will be given injection training. And as Dr. said, maybe the first 1 or 2 might be the ones that will give you some trouble, but then after that, you should be fine.
And I would say we support you through it a lot. So the injections, they sound horrible, but actually it's a pen for most people. And you just dial it up and it's got this tiny little needle at the end of it. Gabby is one of the ones that does the injection training. And most donors, when we talk to them afterwards to find out how it was and how we can improve things, they say, oh, no, it was excellent. Your nurses were fabulous. And actually giving the injections was so much easier than I thought. process when a donor has PCOS, it's exactly the same. PCOS is such a normal thing, ladies. I would say that 1 in 6 women in TNT probably has PCOS. We see it so often. You can't be a donor if you have really severe PCOS. And there's women that get it to a really bad degree and it can affect egg quality. But if you have really minor PCOS, yeah, that's not a procedure. And the process is no different. It's exactly the same, just like for IVF. So really, PCOS is such a common thing. It really doesn't change anything. We're just very careful to explain everything to you and answer your questions, but you're exactly the same as someone who doesn't have PCOS. Last question, Gabby. What was the last one?
How will the injections affect the period after the procedure?
So they don't generally. Actually, let me go back to my slides because that's the last little bit. Good question. Let's go back to the slides. So once we've got the eggs, then that's it. Once we've got the eggs, donation is complete and your period will start up. So that's a great question to ask, exactly the right time. So generally your period is going to come on usually a week to 2 weeks after your donation. And your body then goes completely back to normal. Whatever kind of cycle of periods you had, you generally just click back into a normal cycle. The nurses are going to follow up with you and just let you, we just like to check your period has come on and that you're well. If there are any problems within the month after your donation, once or twice out of 100 donors, somebody will have signs of an infection or they're worried their period hasn't come on. And we see you straight away, you chat with one of the doctors or you come in and have a free scan, we'll always look after you. But really after the first week or two after the procedure's done, you're back to normal. There's no way it's going to harm you or cause you problems. And as I said, we'll follow up with you. Those eggs will go into the egg bank. The way things are at the moment, we have so many more people needing eggs than people donating eggs. So what we're finding is your eggs are getting used really fast. We'll let you know if a pregnancy occurs, although sometimes embryos are created from the people that get your eggs and then they have frozen embryos. So you might not get a pregnancy for a year. If you want to know about a live birth, we'll let you know about that. And if you'd like to know if it's a boy or girl, yeah, absolutely. We'll let you know about that as well.
We have one more question, Doctor. Somebody wants to find out how long you have to wait between donations.
We actually do back-to-back donations sometimes. So there's some people we ask to do what we call a duo stim and do two cycles in 1 month, and they do them straight away. Mostly you wait a month between donations, and if your eggs were lovely and we got lots of them, then we might ask you to come back and be a donor again. Usually that's a month after, depending on what you want to do. It's really how it fits into your life. And then people get asked to come back and be donors again because a couple has had maybe a baby with your eggs, and that baby, boy or girl, is now 1 or 2, and the couple would like to have another baby with your eggs. So we've asked egg donors to come back and donate again for the same couple if they have no eggs left in the egg bank, which is usually what happens. So let's go through some frequently asked questions. So you guys are asking some great questions. Please keep asking. Gabby, just butt in with questions.
I will.
So a lot of people say, what happens to my eggs after donation? So I think you've heard from us really, but once your donation is complete, all your eggs are frozen and they're in our egg bank, which is a special place. It's alarmed. It's got tanks that are monitored very carefully, and frozen nitrogen is put into them every week. And what we do is your eggs are frozen in there in our egg bank, and we compile an anonymous profile based on what you've told us and what we've seen of you. And the recipients, the ladies, the couples that are going to choose your eggs, they look at these profiles and they choose the egg donor they would like. So these are some examples of profiles. If we can, we like to get a baby photo from you just to give them an idea of what you look like. And we give them your age, your characteristics, your eye color, your hair color, your skin color. We give them your ancestry. So we like to tell them what your mother's mother, your mother's father, your father's mother, your father's father, what kind of ethnicity they were, so people can get a feel for what you look like. Because most people are going to choose an egg donor that kind of resembles them as a woman. And in TNT, you know, we have a vast range of different ethnicities and mixes. So that's what we welcome. We have a very diverse and wonderful egg bank. And we're looking for everyone, really, so that when somebody comes in who has a particular ethnicity, they can easily find what they need in our egg bank. It's why we're so attractive to foreign countries as well, because actually it's incredibly difficult abroad to find East Indian or African or particularly mixed donors. If you're looking for an Indian-African mix, you're really only going to find that in Trinidad. So we get a lot of people who are Caribbean origin who come to us for treatment here in TNT because they'd like to use a nice, diverse egg donor. So really, I think that's it now. We'd like to go on to more of your questions. So Gabby, maybe we could just run through some of the questions.
Somebody just wants to find out if your ancestry will be determined through testing.
Gabby, you can answer that one.
Your ancestry is not determined through testing. We give you a questionnaire, quite detailed questionnaire that we would ask you to fill in, and you would give us those types of information. What we do test for is genetics. So it could be any traits that you may carry. Dr. Bean can touch on that a little bit, but the testing will not be to determine ancestry.
Yeah, so the you can test ancestry a bit through genetics, and that's what the commercial genetic testing is all about. It's not very accurate, and actually we just want to know, what did your mother say what were your grandparents? What's much more important to us is really what you say your ancestry is, because that's much more accurate than genetic testing. With the genetic testing, we're looking to see, do you carry any rare conditions? Like, do you carry the gene for spinal muscular atrophy? Do you carry a gene for sickle cell, which is very common? Do you carry a gene for an unusual kidney disease? And then if you do carry any of these things, if you carry sickle cell, that makes you get some medical problems. So if you carry a genetic disease that actually is going to give you medical problems, we wouldn't pass that on to a baby. But the vast majority of things you carry genetically, you would never know about. They don't give you any problems at all, and it doesn't rule you out as a donor. But as we said earlier, we then check the guy that's providing the sperm in the couple to make sure that he doesn't carry that, because you don't want to have a baby with one of these serious but very rare genetic conditions.
So somebody wants to find out, in the event of any abnormalities found during screening, would they be notified, and you have access to the results of all screening tests?
Yeah, we give you all of your results, absolutely. And as I said, it's screening for things you might carry that you have no idea about, things that are incredibly rare. So it's not things that should worry you, but absolutely, they're your results. We're very happy to give them to you. So yes, absolutely.
We also do not charge any fees to any of the donors for any of the testing. It's completely at the expense of the clinic. So our donors are just required to get to and from appointments. You don't have to pay any fees for anything that we are asking you to do.
Yeah, there's no fee to start the process. There's no fee for any of the blood tests. Should you drop out for your own reason, we don't ask you to pay for anything. So yeah, it's all absolutely free. And I see Hamer's asking, where in Trinidad and Tobago are you located? We're not in Tobago at the moment. We're in Trinidad. We're in the west in our clinic in Marival, and we're in central in our clinic in St. Joseph, which is currently located in Medical Associates Hospital. Someone's asking if we have a location in South. Unfortunately, we don't. No, you don't actually need. You only need to come to the clinic about 4 times. A lot of what we do now is telehealth. For the blood test, you can go to a local lab that we are linked with. So yes, can you do any of the procedures in San Fernando? You can certainly have your blood test done there. You can do your telehealth from there. Your counseling is often telehealth. You do need to come to the Medical Associates branch in St. Joseph to have your ultrasounds and your egg collection.
We have questions asking about the availability after the presentation for them to look at it again.
So yes, if you come in late, not a problem. You're going to get a link to be able to watch this entire webinar afterwards. So don't worry at all if you're late. We understand that. That's not a problem. And Anisha's asking, I'm not sure if this was discussed before, what's the criteria to become a donor? I can run through them. It was discussed at the beginning. You'll see it if you re-watch this. We need people that are young, because old eggs aren't good. So we recruit ideally people between 21 and 28. If you're a little over 28, that's okay. You can't actually donate until you're at least 21. We don't take people younger than that. But if you're 20, you can always complete the form and we'll come back to you in a year. What else? You need to be healthy. You need to be a good weight. We want you to have been a non-smoker for at least 3 months. You can't have severe pelvic problems like endometriosis, which can make it dangerous for you to be an egg donor because it can be difficult to get to your eggs, but also affects your egg quality. You can't have sickle cell disease. You can't have genetic conditions in your family or in you, like epilepsy or schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. We're looking to ideally have healthy babies where we're not passing on genetic things. And the procedure can begin as soon as you want. So I can see a question coming in there about how soon. What you need to do is email us EGG at trinidadivf.com. Gabby's just put it in the chat there. We'll get you the application form straight away and you can start being screened straight away. Okay. Let's see what other questions have been asked. So we've done this webinar multiple times. People often ask, will I know the person who gets my eggs? Somebody was asking that on Facebook as well. Is this open or closed? It's a closed donation. This is anonymous. So you don't get to be told the identity of the person who gets your eggs, but also they don't get to be told your identity. But we do ask you if you would like to know whether a pregnancy occurs, whether a live birth occurs, and whether it's a girl or boy, but you won't get any more information than that. Another question, we just want to make sure that you understand, if a baby is born, would you ever be legally responsible for that child in any way? And the answer is no. You are not the legal parent of any child born. The way the law works is that it doesn't matter where the egg or sperm comes from. It is the woman that physically gives birth to a baby that is always the legal mother, the legal parent. So if you donated eggs, there's no way you could have any legal way of getting that child. And the flip side is there's no way that anyone could come after you for anything. You absolutely have no legal responsibilities. It's a gift that you give away.
We have a question, Doctor. Why can't you be older than 28 to donate?
So you can be. We do assess people and look, but the reality is egg recipients are looking for young women. So it's rare that your eggs get chosen. So it's our decision. We have a look at you. If you're 29 or 30, we might take you on as a donor. We don't take people on older than that because the eggs just don't get chosen from our egg bank because there's so many young women coming through. And it's really because as women get older, the eggs get less good quality, although in your early 30s, eggs are generally fine. It's just the fact that people who want eggs have been through a lot and they're really looking for the best chance, which they get from a woman generally in their 20s. That's why.
And I have another question. How long after my application would I be contacted? I can answer that one. It depends on whether you would have filled in your application properly, because if it's not, it will be sent back. The application also has to be reviewed before we contact you. So usually it could be up to 2 to 3 days. It could be as much as a week. It all depends on what the application form looks like when it's submitted.
And I would just add in there, guys, the ad that we've been running, we've had an overwhelming response. We've had over 400 people saying they want to be egg donors, which is quite unusual for us. I mean, that's a huge amount of amazing women who are considering this, and we're very grateful. So I would say at the moment, you need to give us probably 2 to 3 weeks to get back to you, because we suddenly, it's much more of a response than we had expected, which as I said, we're very grateful for. And just really shows you how many amazing people there are in TNT that are considering this.
Now, can we also touch on the difference between a known donor as opposed to a donor for the clinic?
Absolutely. So yes, you can donate to someone who's your friend. So you could be in your early 30s and your friend needs eggs. Absolutely, you can be an egg donor for them. And we would assess you. So we take known donors, people who are donating to a friend or a family member, right up until their late 30s generally. And it's really up to you guys, you and the person you're donating to together, to decide if you'll make a good donor. And we screen you the same way, what we've just been discussing here. We look at your egg levels, and we kind of then give your friend or your family member a kind of rundown of how likely it is that they're going to get a pregnancy from your donation, and they make a decision. The oldest egg donation we've done, known donor, so the oldest egg donor who is anonymous, I think was 34. But the oldest known egg donor was a 37-year-old, 38-year-old sister, 38. She donated to her sister who came in from the UK, who was Trini origin. This lady who was 38, she'd already got 4 or 5 children, I think a few more than that. And she made an excellent egg donor, and her sister got pregnant. So if you're being a known donor, we assess you and see really what you're like and what your egg recipient thinks. There's no point you donating eggs from 40 onwards. It really is just so difficult to find a good egg in a 40-year-old woman. You're just not giving your friend a chance. So we don't take on egg donors 40 onwards.
One thing to add to that, if you are coming on as a known donor for your friend, the clinic is not responsible for compensation for donation.
Yeah. Very important. So if you're donating to a friend, she pays for your screening and she pays for anything that you need in your IVF. It's a very different thing than if you're coming in as an anonymous donor. Should I go with the frequency asked questions, or Gabby, anything else?
One more. How many days off work would this take generally?
Okay, so you don't really need time off work for the screening. You fit it in around your hours. When you are actually doing the donation, when you're actually doing the treatment cycle, the injections you give first thing in the morning, you pop in for a scan first thing in the morning. So most people carry on working. The only time you need a day or two off is the egg collection day. And generally you have that day off. A lot of people go back to work the next day, or we give them sick leave for a day or two afterwards. So generally you're going to look at 1 to 2 or 3 days off work. Gabby, would you say that's about right?
That's about it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, another frequently asked question we get is egg donation risky? And we would say no, it's an extremely safe procedure, and it's actually become a lot safer in the last 10 years because OHSS, overgrowth of the ovaries and the eggs, is long gone because of a new treatment we use called agonist trigger injections. We take your safety incredibly safely, it's very important to us. So we take a lot of steps to make sure that you're safe. And, you know, part of that is us assessing you and examining you. One of the fertility doctors here actually does your ultrasound to check that your ovaries are in a place where we can get to the eggs without causing damage to you. So we take a lot of steps to ensure your safety. You're very important. Obviously, with any medical procedure, there are going to be some small risks. And the risks really with egg donation are bleeding or infection during the egg collection procedure. And those two things are about a 1 in 1,000 chance. We give you some antibiotics actually a day or two before the egg collection. And if you were to get an infection, that 1 in 1,000 chance, you would know because you would feel unwell within the first 24 hours. And you would call us and we would sort it out with you with some simple antibiotics. So it's very safe. Those things hardly ever happen. The risk of bleeding, we've been doing this 20 years, and I think we've only ever had one woman who had a bit of bleeding, 1 or 2 women, and we put a little stitch in to stop it. We've never needed to give a blood transfusion, anything like that, but we warn you about it. We're very upfront. So really during the procedure, those are the 2 risks. It's not a general anesthetic, so it's not like you're having any problems with your breathing. So the sedation is incredibly safe. You're not at risk from a general anesthetic because we don't give one. It's not surgery. Those are the risks really. And yeah, it's incredibly safe.
We have a question. Was 2 questions really. One was how many eggs are expected to be collected? And the second one is, do you get paid in accordance to how many eggs are collected?
Oh, yeah. So that's actually the next question that I just loaded up. So how many eggs are collected? We don't know. It depends on how many your body gives us. And generally, an egg donor will give us somewhere between 10 to 20 eggs. Occasionally, you get 28 eggs. Occasionally, you only get 6 or 7 eggs. That's fine. We get what we get. Your body decides what it's going to give us in a safe way, and that's what we get during your donation. You get paid for a donation. So we're not buying your eggs from you. We're giving you a fee to cover the time that you had to give us as a clinic, which is about 2 weeks. I mean, as I said, you only need a day or 2 off, so actually people carry on working. So we give you a 5,000 TT fee when you do the egg collection. That means you've come through, you've had all your screening, you've gone through with the injections as you were asked, you've had your scans, we know that you've got eggs there, and you come in for the egg collection, you've completed everything. Whether or not you get eggs, we give you the fee for donating. So it's not really that you have to be worried whether or not you're going to get eggs, but you also don't get a dollar per egg. That's not the way we do it. Okay, another question we get asked, I think we touched on this before. Is there a limit to how many times I can donate? Yes, there is. Although it's actually very safe to keep donating again and again. It doesn't harm your body and it doesn't harm your future fertility. But most egg donors are going to do somewhere between 1 to 3 cycles with us. The most we've had was 4 cycles because she was asked to come back and donate again for the family that already had a child with us here in TNT. We're very careful. We don't want lots and lots of your biological children walking around in TNT. We're a relatively small country. So we've got an ethics committee, and it says that we can create 3 families with your eggs in TNT. So you'll see these stories in the newspaper about sperm donors creating hundreds of children. We don't do that with sperm donors here because we bring in sperm from abroad, and we're very careful about the number of families they can create. Same with you and your eggs. And if you have your own children, okay, you're 1 family, and we can only create 2 more families with your eggs. So we're really ethical, we're really careful. We do also have international patients. Our latest baby was born in New Zealand, and we would look at the size of the country and just be very careful to limit the number of potential children in any state in the US or any country. So Guyana, we just need to be careful. We get quite a few people coming in from the Caribbean, Barbados, St. Lucia, Guyana, Suriname, Antigua. So we're just careful and watch the number of babies from each egg donor. Again, we'd limit the number of babies in Barbados. It's very small to 2 families, Antigua 2 or 3 families. So we're careful about that.
We have an interesting question. Would the biological children from separate families be aware of each other?
So that's an interesting question. Firstly, would the child even know that they were born from egg donation? So our counselors in the clinic encourage all the couples that are going to use your eggs, they're called the recipients, to be honest with their children, number one, and tell them about egg donation, the fact that they were born through an egg donor. We really encourage that because we think it's the best way. The evidence and the research shows that you shouldn't hide things from children. So we sincerely hope that those children would know that they were born through an egg donor. Their parents wouldn't know if there was another family in TNT, except if the egg donor had a family, then they would know about that because it was on the profile. So the biological children wouldn't know who the other biological children were. But what we do is we keep very safe records on every single donation and every single pregnancy that occurs. So if a child, say an 18-year-old woman says, okay, well, I was born through egg donation in your clinic, I'm with this partner, and I'd like to know if I'm related to him in any way before we start a sexual relationship, we can certainly confirm or deny that. We would never give away the egg donor's identity to a child, and we would never give away the child's identity to an egg donor. So yes, we would always be able to let them know if they had any biological relationships to someone they were with. It's never happened, we've never been asked, but we're prepared for it. We're also prepared in case an egg donor baby comes to us or the parents come to us and say, listen, my child has leukemia. I'm looking for a bone marrow transplant. My baby was an egg donor. Is there any way you could get in touch with the egg donor and let them know for me in case they would be willing to be a bone marrow donor for my child because they're biologically related? So that type of thing, again, we might contact you and say, listen, your anonymous egg donor baby needs a transplant or an egg, something in the future, and we would be able to find you. Again, we wouldn't give away your details, we wouldn't give away their details, but we would certainly know who you are and be able to facilitate that. I hope that answers your question.
We have one last question. Do the eggs remain in Trinidad and Tobago, or do we send the eggs outside to other clinics?
That's a very good question. We don't have enough eggs for our own population. So we're not a commercial egg bank and we do not sell your eggs abroad. We are here for our local TNT population, and we keep egg donation as cost effective for them as we can. Now there are costs, a lot of costs to us to screen egg donors. a lot of cost to us. By the time your eggs get into an egg bank, we have screened maybe 100 women for every 7 that actually donate eggs. So it's actually a very expensive process to screen women, do all the testing, provide all of the screening. Then to do the actual procedures and the drugs is expensive. We try to keep it as cost effective for the people needing those eggs. So we actually have very low costs for them, but they have to pay for their treatment, and they have to take up the cost of all of this egg screening. So our egg donation here in Trinidad is probably about 1/10 of the cost of what a woman would pay in the US or the UK. So we hide, you'll see we don't do much advertising. We don't need to. We're a hugely busy clinic here in TNT, and other clinics advertise from the Caribbean, and people find us and come to us. We don't advertise internationally. That's not what we want. And yeah, we don't ship your eggs out. But we do get international patients coming to us. They're primarily people who are married to someone of Trini origin or Caribbean origin, or someone who's African and looking for really lovely African eggs, and they've heard about our Caribbean egg bank, or they're East Indian and they're looking for interesting East Indian egg donors, which we have plenty of here in TNT. Or they're people who are living abroad and they've got a mix. And they're very much like a mixed egg donor to match them. They don't just want a Caucasian egg donor, which is what you tend to get in many of the large commercial egg banks. So international patients do find us. With the COVID pandemic easing off, we're getting a lot more international inquiries now. And then we get loads of inquiries from the Caribbean, because your other Caribbean clinics really don't have egg donor banks. And so a lot of their patients will leave them and come to us, find us and realize how great we are. We're the only one with UK accreditation. We're the only one that has this phenomenal egg bank. Trinidad and Tobago is the only place with the most amazing, diverse egg donors. So there's a lot that we offer. So we do have international patients, and that means that some of your babies from your eggs may well be abroad, and we'll let you know that. Gabby, any other questions coming in?
That was it for questions.
Wonderful. So guys, last few minutes, put your questions in the chat for me and Gabby. If you're interested, what do you do next? Well, we want to hear from you. We do have a form on our website, but it seems glitchy, and for some reason the forms aren't going through. So huge apologies about that. I'm not a web designer, but I am going to the person who can do it for us to figure out why that form has stopped working. Gabby and I, unfortunately, are not that talented.
Nope.
But we have, sadly, but we've heard from a lot of you that it's giving you a lot of trouble. So huge apologies about that. But just email us, please. Egg, it's right here on this picture, egg@trinidadivf.com. Or you can just call up one of our lovely receptionists, 622-8869 or 222-8341. Ask any questions you want. Once they realize you want to be an egg donor, they will start asking you some questions. They'll get you the form on our portal, or they can email it. I'm just seeing one last question. Yeah.
Somebody wanted to find out if both the recipient and the donor are okay with knowing each other's identity in the event of health problems, with the identity be shared.
So, Chelsea, no, we would not share your identity. We keep your identity private. We protect privacy and confidentiality in an incredibly fierce way. We never give away the identity of our donors or our patients. And if there was a health problem, we would act as an intermediary, but they would never know you and you would never know them, unless you both said you wanted it more than anything in the world. And then maybe we've never had that, but then we'd let you both go through our counselors. And if you wanted to know, I guess we could do that for you. So we'd not prevent it if both of you wanted it, but we would never give away your identity. No, we fiercely protect it, and you would be kept anonymous.
One other thing to note on that is that if there is something that you, the donor, may have that can pass on to cause a health problem for a child, that automatically disqualifies you from being an egg donor. Yeah. So in that instance, it would not have been passed from your side. And we have another question about vaccination status. Is it important?
So yes, to come into the clinic, actually, Gabby, do patients have to be vaccinated and then tested? You know that better than me. You're there day to day.
Patients, yes. We do require testing from our egg donors. So if you're not fully vaccinated and you have been selected, you will be required to be screened before you're allowed into the clinic. It is preferred, but it's not mandatory.
So we're talking about COVID vaccination here, yes. So for egg donors, we would prefer you to be vaccinated, but if you're choosing not to be, that you would need to be tested before you come into the clinic, just so that you don't cause an infection of the staff in the clinic.
We have another question. Can someone with lupus be an egg donor?
Can lupus be passed on? Lupus is not quite so simple as it's a genetic condition. Autoimmune conditions seem to have some sort of genetic basis. If you yourself had lupus, systemic lupus, SLE, you wouldn't be qualifying as an egg donor, no. If it's in your family, I probably would let you be an egg donor, yes. But it would be put on your profile. And then I'm seeing one other question. How often do women visit the clinic to have an IVF done? So you need to come in to be examined and screened. So that's probably 1 or 2 visits. And then when you're doing the actual donation itself, the actual procedure, I think you come in 3 times. Do you, Gabby, 3 or 4 times?
3 or 4, yeah. It all depends. We try to do it, and if we can get everything done in as little time as possible, but sometimes it may require revisits.
Okay. Okay, I'm seeing one more private question coming in. Would having the sickle cell trait disqualify a person from donating? Yes, it would. It's one of the medical conditions actually that can affect you. So a sickle cell trait, obviously full sickle cell disease would disqualify you as an egg donor, but carrying sickle cell trait does have some medical implications. So unfortunately, yes, unfortunately, we would not take you on as a donor if you have sickle cell trait. Okay. Gabby, anything else you'd like to say just to wrap up? Because we're over the hour now, guys, so we're going to be wrapping up.
I just wanted to say that this is a very brave decision to become a donor, but it's also one that you have to take very seriously, because it does involve us being dependent on you for this gift that you are giving. So if it's something that at any point overwhelms you, we have counselors that you can talk to, you can speak with one of the nurses. Just voice what you're feeling so we can help you work through it and decide if this is something that you want to do or not. But it is also a selfless gift that you're giving to somebody. You're giving somebody an opportunity to have a family that they would not ordinarily have on their own. So it's a good thing that you all are doing.
Yeah, and I'd echo what Gabby said. You know, we're amazingly proud of our egg donors. We get to know you guys well, and we're incredibly thankful for you that you are giving this gift. Donors that have been through the clinic say it's been an incredibly positive experience. We've never had an egg donor who had a negative experience. They become friends with the staff in the clinic. They get to know us extremely well. And they say we're not pushy. We really are here for you guys because you're giving an incredible gift. And if it's not right for you, you tell us at any point. But you'll get that feeling because we keep saying it to you over and over again. If you're interested
in getting you ready, but that's just because we need you to do what needs to be done. So
yeah, and we'll guide you, and we'll be bossy when we need to be bossy, telling you what to do. But we're here to work with you, and it's really a partnership. And ultimately, you're the most important person, and we want you to stay safe and well, and only do this if it really is something that makes sense for you. For those who do it and get through it, they say that it's really enriched their lives. Jay, I was just talking to one of our egg donors because I'm doing a column for the newspaper, and I wanted to chat with one of our egg donors and interview her. And she said, oh, it was just such an amazing experience. She was so scared of doing the injections, but actually that was fine after the first day. And she wants to do it again, but she can't at the moment. You know, we need to wait and see how many families we get from her eggs. So she can't do it again at the moment, but she said she'd love to. It was such a positive experience, which really surprised her. Another lady that came through, Susan, she said, you know, she doesn't want children of her own. She wasn't going to be an egg donor, but then a friend was talking to her, and she kind of ended up in the clinic by mistake with a friend. And this was a couple of years ago. And she said she loved being an egg donor. Just taking the injections made her feel so positive. She really missed it after those 2 weeks. She got some lovely positive feelings when she was doing it, and she said it was just such a lovely experience. And again, when you get a family that gets a pregnancy, it's such a joyous feeling. So we're going to end up there really and just say, listen, any more questions you have? Gabby, are there any others coming in?
We just have one asking what is the required weight.
Depends on your height. So we go on your body mass index. We like you to be between 19 to 24 on your body mass index, BMI. So you can go online, check BMI. If you're a little bit overweight or a little bit underweight, you can still come in and be screened, and we'll say to you, okay, well, before we can do your profile and before you can go ahead, we need you to lose weight so that when you donate, you are this weight. Because as I said, we're very honest on our profiles. We don't lie on profiles. We're going to give your information that's anonymized to anyone who's looking for eggs. And generally, they want you to be a healthy weight. So that means that women who are 300 pounds plus are not going to be egg donors. And that means that women that are under 100 pounds are not going to be egg donors. That's too low and too high. But look at BMI. Go online, get a BMI calculator, put in your weight and your height, and you want to be in the healthy green range, which is between 19 and 24. Great. So guys, this is the end of our webinar. If you're interested in being an egg donor, what do you do next? It really is, just like we said, it is to contact us. And absolutely, the email I'm going to leave here. Gabby, would you like to read it?
It is egg@trinidadivf.com, or call us 622-8869 or 222-8341.
And we would just like to say a huge thank you to all of you. And we look forward to meeting you in the clinic soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.